Hello everyone and welcome to don't seem to know what well anyway the URL is the dota2.com and slash new bloom slash day 2, and in this is pretty much a Dota 2 6.80 patch update video. I think there should be a few on YouTube done by some of the pro players, but think of this patch overview as um knowledge on or information on the new patch that will be coming to Dota 2 from a general gamer. So hopefully I may not be as intricate or as highly detailed as maybe a pro player would be, but then at least it would help the viewers understand the changes from a layman's point of view, from a general gamer's point of view, as in how this would affect you. If you if there are some details to be explained, so it would be like me basically explaining to you what the change is all about. And as you can see, the big highlight of the change, of course, being the New Bloom Festival, which is to celebrate the Lunar New Year, or should I say the Chinese New Year, and bringing in the Year of the Horse. The big update is, of course, there will be a game mode called the New Bloom, and of course, they're bringing in Terrorblade. I'm gonna talk about him, of course, and the things in the patch, but Terrorblade was one of, if not the best hero, or should I say Illidan Stormrage was one of my favorite heroes in Warcraft. And Terrorblade was, like, after I learned how to play Dota 1, Terrorblade was also one of my most used heroes. May not be exactly my favorite, but anyway, we'll talk more about him. Terrorblade, there's his name. He used to be called, in Dota 1, he used to be called the Soul Keeper. That was his title, and his name was Terrorblade. So Terrorblade, I hope Valve won't be hit with a copyright strike for this by Blizzard. I'm not too sure about the Terrorblade naming, as I thought maybe they'll change it to something else to avoid this, like the whole Necrolite, Necrophos, Windrunner, Windranger, along that sort of vein. I thought Terrorblade was a bit too risky. This is a whole bunch of text for for the whole new Bloom thing, and really, I don't really care about Dota 2 lore as much as I care about Dota 1 and Warcraft lore, as I believe that I was closest to the creator. So here are his skills. Reflection is a skill whereby you create a double of your foe, which then attacks its original as it slows their movement. So how this used to work, I don't know how they're going to implement it in Dota 2, but I can definitely tell you how it works currently, or when it was implemented in Dota 1. Keep in mind, Terrorblade was a hero who's had his moveset altered in the past 4 years about 3 or 4 times in terms of certain moves being put in and certain moves being taken out and then replaced and then redone. So it's like Ice Rock really had some problems trying to rebalance this hero, as there were certain times when he was weak. It's like he has early game weakness, as most hard carries do, but he can carry really hard, as he's got a good agi gain of about 3.2 and is illusion based, but he doesn't suffer some of the problems that most other illusion heroes suffer of, like, for example, low HP in the beginning and stuff like that. So you could make him work, and his skill set kind of helps. But like any other hero, of course, you need farm on him. So don't expect Terrorblade to be a high impact hero in the sense that you can do a lot with no farm. But it's very versatile. You can take him on the hard lane. You can use him, previously in some of the older changes, you could use him in the jungle. This can still be possible with some tricks, though. I believe I'll need to get into a lobby and do some practicing, as I think you can still jungle Terrorblade, as he used to have a move called Life Steal, Life Leech, which was similar to Pugna's ulti, except it was a basic move, and then Ice Frog tried to make it his ulti, and then he changed it back to a basic move, but it's pretty much you tether onto your enemy or to your ally and transfer either your health. When you tether to your ally, it's your health to the ally, but if it's an enemy, it's your health, their health to yours, and it's within a leash range and you can move and attack, so you could use that on creeps. That's how you could jungle with them before, but now I'm not too sure about that. But anyway, that's all in the past. That moveset has long been discarded, so you'd really have to come up with some new technology on how to jungle with them with this current moveset, but I think it'll be a bit hard without some choke point jungling. So Reflection Cast is a AoE. I'm not sure the radius of what it's gonna be, but I know that the cast range is 275, and anything caught in that AoE, whether it's creeps, heroes, anything that's not magic immune, I believe, will have a unit, will have a phantom of themselves, and this phantom will attack them for the whole duration and slow their movement by 60%. And this illusion at max level should do 60% of their damage. So pretty much, for example, if there's a PL army, you could cast Reflection and make your own PL army that's attacking the PL army. Whether those reflected units would make illusions, I'm not too sure, but that would actually be quite cool in my point of view. But anyway, before Reflection was introduced, I think Terrorblade had a move called Zeal. Zeal was a passive that increased HP reach. Well, Reflection came first, but then they removed it at some point in time, I believe, or it was introduced later, I forgot. But used to have a passive called Zeal that increased attack speed and HP regen per level up until level 4, but it kind of made him weak as he had no way to slow units or to stun them. So they really had to introduce something that was either slow as stun, then Reflection was it, and Reflection really scales well into the late game as in the early game, as the percentage slow is 60%, so that's strong in the early game for the time period. And in the late game, the 60% damage that the illusions do is significant. It's like a Darkseer Wall. Well, not Darkseer Wall. Darkseer Wall does 100%, but think about it like this. It's similar to Darkseer's Wall in the sense that, one, you definitely make illusions of the people you're fighting, as they'll be in the AoE, and they can't dodge it unless they're magic immune. The illusions may only do 60%, but they slow for 60, and those illusions cannot be attacked and destroyed. Think about it like that. Conjure Image is a second skill. It allows you to summon forth an illusion of yourself to aid you in battle. You cannot use this to dodge stuns, but you can use this in fog to make some shenanigans to either bait people. And the way the illusion works is that at level 4 it should deal 60% of your damage. It's up for, I think it's up for 32 or 33 seconds, and the cooldown on actually creating images is like 16. So you can create 2 essentially. So there'll be 3 Terrorblades on the map. But a few seconds after one disappears. So you can constantly have you and an image, and there'll be a small grace period where it's you and 2 images. But just know the third is always on a short timer and will run out soon. So you could use this in fog to either bait people, or like for example, there are certain times when you're scared to take Roshan, and your team is taking Roshan, and you can have your illusion there helping your teammates do Roshan, as 60% of your damage is still a lot of damage in terms of killing Roshan. But you can be sitting in safe to try counter initiate, because they'll believe that their carry is taking Roshan, focus down the carry, but then they end up realizing that they focus down your illusion. And some other gimmicks you can do with the images, and of course they deal lots of damage, and Terrorblade has got an edgy gain of like 3.2. So your illusions will do a lot of damage, and think about the 3 illusions as increasing your damage output from 100% to about 220% damage output. So it's double damage and then some. So it's really okay, but they do take enhanced damage, so you'll have to build some edgy tank items like Sanjin Yasha for the slow and the good stats of HP and agility. You're gonna build things like Butterfly, you're gonna build things like BKB and Mantis Style. All good items. Metamorphosis is changes you into a ranged unit. How it works is you trigger it, and this range being for I think it's 52 seconds at max level, but it's got a huge cooldown. Think of it like as your ultimate. It's got a huge cooldown of like 90 plus seconds. And the way it works is it changes you into a ranged unit, gives you bonus HP, and then it gives you bonus damage up to 80 bonus damage, which is a lot really. 80 damage. It's like having let me try to think. Maybe about it's like having a radiance, switching off the radiance burn. Of course, it's like having a radiance and like 2 blades of attack, which is significant for 4 skill levels, I think. And one thing you should notice that the reason why I say it's like an ultimate is because of the bonus damage, the bonus HP, but the damage this used to do, Metamorphosis in Dota 1 used to do chaotic damage, which is similar to the damage that siege units do. in the sense that it's not hardly reduced by towers. So think of it like Dragon Knight ulti, except Dragon Knight ulti is different. The damage is chaotic, but there are three types. There's the poison, the fire, and the ice, and they have additional effects. Like, for example, the poison is chaotic damage in the sense that of Dragon Knight's level 6 ultimate is not as reduced by towers. It's closer to its original value. Plus, it does the corrosive burn to the towers as well. So it's not the same as Dragon Knight ulti in that sense, as there's no continuous damage of the poison on the tower, but it's not as reduced. So you could use this to push towers, for example. And if you're ranged in Metamorphosis, you can conjure an image which is a Metamorphosis image, or you could make a ranged illusion, then Metamorphosis, then you'll have a melee unit and a ranged unit. Or, yeah, you could keep on mixing it up. So you could have like 2 ranged, 1 melee, 2 ranged and stuff, mixing up things like that with your images to kind of confuse your units. And your ultimate is a move called Sunder, which swaps hit points, or should I say percentage of hit points for you and whoever you swap with, whether it's an ally or an enemy unit. So for example, if you're very low, let's just say you have, I don't know, 20%, and your enemy has 100%, you can switch sorry, I'm burping a lot. You can switch your HP, and you are up to 100%, and they are on 20%. No, they won't be on 20% because there's a threshold. At the first level of your ult is 33. Then I think it goes like 33, 26, 22. So it's like, for example, if you're on 1 HP. I think I used to misunderstand this a lot in Dota 1. Maybe I'm even wrong now. I used to think that if you dropped below the threshold, you couldn't swap. Maybe that was just me who was wrong. But the way I've come to understand it now is that if you're on 1 HP, for example, I don't know how you'll be surviving on 1 HP, but if you're on 1 HP and they're on 100% HP, you'll swap HPs, you'll be on full HP with that 100% hit points. But they won't go to 1 HP because that would be cheesy, as you could just one-shot them. They go to the threshold, which is 33%, 26%, and 22%. So you'll never put them on 1 HP, as I think that would be too good, as even a creep could kill them at that point. It's a really good skill. It's hard countered by silence. It goes through BKB. This implies whether you have the BKB and it's on, you can still swap hit points, and whether they have the BKB, then you can still swap hit points, I believe. And one cool thing you have to notice is that sometimes back in Dota 1, people used to do cheesy builds where they would go Shadow Blade and Dagon on him. This is really bad. Don't think this is the item build to get on Terrorblade. This is, like I said, a cheesy skill build, which was really stupid, but sometimes was effective. If you're playing with friends in a lobby, for example, and you just want to troll each other, you can do this as Terrorblade. It's what you do is, you can go to the Roshan pit, for example. Let Roshan wail down on you till you're low HP, for example, till you're like 200 HP. You've got your Shadow Blade and your Dagon. You Shadow Blade out of the Roshan pit, you target someone and you just Shadow Blade and run straight to them. Get into melee range, sunder them, get their HP, and they get the 33% threshold, for example, that you've given them, and then you instantly Dagon and kill them. So that's a cheap way you can use Sunder. I guess you'll see more of the hero as it's released, but don't think the hero's overpowered in the sense that he's an insta-pick, insta-win hero. I believe that Terrorblade, like, he's been out for a very long time. He's been out since almost the beginning of Dota 1, but not really the beginning. Like, maybe a couple of patches after Dota 1 All-Stars, for example. So it's like the hero has a weak early game, a really weak, like most hard carries do. But like most of the older heroes, they're very simple. It's very easy to understand. And it's very easy to play. I dare say it's not a high skill cap hero. It's very easy. But the hard part is trying to find that farm since you're so early, like any other carry really. But don't think it's an insta-pick, insta-win. You really have to put in a lot of work to make Terrorblade work. It takes a lot of skill. And it's got an Arcana item, as you can see here. And it's going to be coming 6 Feb. And, well, anyway, I'm recording this currently on the 28th of January, a day after the patch. And we'll see what he has to offer to the Dota 2. But personally, I don't think Terrorblade will be picked professionally, because really what most people used to do is the laning phase was kind of hard. The only way you can contribute to lane is Reflection. He was good in tri-lanes because he had Metamorphosis and Reflection, which was increased damage and the slow, which is most carries don't even have that. You could actually, I think you could tri-lane this guy really well as the farming carry of the tri-lane, as he can actually contribute. Well, at least he contributes more than a PA or a PL or like a faceless void or something. Contributes way more. But of course, he needs lots of items. Could tri-lane him and do some damage. But I don't think he'll be picked in the pro scene, as really currently the meta game from what I've seen is most teams try get like towers give a lot of bounty, so people like to push. They're more aggressive, and really I don't think Terrorblade can handle early aggression at all. I don't believe he can. So I don't think he'll be played professionally when he's entered into captain's mode. And really that's pretty much all I have to say about him. Random ability draft will be an ability that will be added to Dota 2. Not an ability, game mode, which will be added to Dota 2, whereby each player is given a random hero. Like, for example, there are 10 of us playing in a match. Each person has a random hero. And then all their skills are put into a pool. And then, like how you, excuse me, in random draft, you know how there'll be heroes, and then each person takes a turn picking a hero. So it'll be like 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, right? In terms of picking orders, I think. So that would be the same case as every character's abilities that are the randomly picked characters' abilities are put into a pool, and then everyone has a turn picking which abilities they want for their hero. But I'm not too sure if they are gonna pick all 4 skills at a time, of which I think that would not be fair. I think maybe they'll take turns picking abilities one at a time. So like, for example, someone can take hook and then he stops, then someone else takes another skill like bottom arrow, then he stops, and then they've got one ability each. Then someone else picks their first ability, because like really if if someone can pick their 4 abilities at once, it would make sense to pick all 4 abilities at all of the 4 best abilities in one go. So that wouldn't be fair to everyone else who's waiting. So that's what I have to say. It would be really fun. It would be really fun to see, like, for example, as you can see on the art here, we've got Luna, who's got the Enchantress heal going on here with the imps, and she's got the Pudge hook, and then here we've got Crystal Maiden with Rot and Lion's Finger of Death. So you'll be seeing some weird lineups. I don't know if it will contribute to your games won, games lost, but definitely this will be a mode worth playing. It's definitely fun. It was fun in Dota 1. Now to the actual gameplay update, 6.80. I had seen a lot of like not official, oh my goodness, this might be it, it's been leaked, and I'm glad to see that it was all a lie. I'd seen so much information of so many hero nerfs and hero buffs, and I thought to myself, if this really happened, my goodness, Dota would be broken. But luckily all those patch analyses before 6.8 were all false, as apparently they were leaked, but it was all lies. And this one really is just a nerf to most of the heroes who felt a bit too overpowered. Really, it's more of a nerf patch, and really it's not as big. 6.79 is still the bigger update in terms of what content it brought to the game. This is not really a game-changing patch, but the nice thing about it is that there's more hero diversity, because all the OP heroes that were picked all the time have not been majorly nerfed, but they've been nerfed to such an extent that they are of almost equal value as everyone else before. But of course, some top tier heroes are still top tier heroes, and some people are still getting buffs and stuff like that. So it's trying to balance itself out more. You won't really see some of the cheesy lineups you went up against. So the first thing is you now lose 1 gold per second if you haven't picked a hero after the selection timer runs out in all pick. So usually this is to sort of give incentive to people to stop counter picking to such an extent, because there are some times whereby you'd pick your heroes and the opponents would just sit and wait for the creeps to almost spawn, and this will force you to just pick whatever hero you wanted to play and just play it and hope to not get counter picked, because time is running out and the creeps are running to lane, and you know you want your AXP. But these people just wait for the creeps to almost spawn, then they spawn and counter pick all your heroes, buy the courier, go to lane, you know, and then your lanes are almost messed up because you've been counterpicked. And also, it's to stop counterpicks in the sense that now, the more you, like after the selection screen, you start losing 1 gold per second. So really, it's not that much gold. You only lose about a clarity or a tango branch in terms of gold, which is not much. So that person will have to go with a clarity or a tango less to lane whoever this person counterpicked you. But it's also incentive for, I've played with a lot of friends who decide to AFK during the loading screen, for example, or during the waiting phase into the all pick selection screen to go do other things like fix food or go to the toilet during the time they didn't go before they accepted the game, which I don't understand why. And then these people come back 2 minutes into the game, and then it's like, yo man, I thought you were my friend. Two, why do you decide to do other things as you're loading into the game? Surely you should have a timetable whereby, okay, fine, if I'm gonna play a Dota game, I have to almost like not fully commit, as in throw away all things in life. If it's an emergency, do it. But for example, I wouldn't join someone's party and then as the game is loading and people are selecting their heroes, I decide to go order pizza and leave, or go to the store, and then it's like, now we're fighting 4v5 because you decided to go to the store as we've loaded into the game. So those people will be punished as they'll have less gold. But the way they balanced it out is that the selection time, during the all pick selection time, you spend more time picking heroes than you do waiting for creeps to spawn. As you can see, the creep time spawn has been reduced. So this still means that the time is still the same in terms of from picking heroes to creep spawning. But the way it's worked now is that you have more time in the screen. That way people have less time to counter pick you. For example, now Roshan no longer stops upgrading his armor at 45 minutes. This made it easier for Dire to kill Roshan after 45 minutes. Because of course Roshan is on the Dire side of the map, and really it was risky for Radiant to go take Roshan after 45 minutes because, one, as much as he was easy to kill, they had to venture into enemy territory, which was most likely warded, and then they'll kind of be counter ganked, and then it kind of goes bad. So these buffs here, like the upgrade rate increased by 20%, is to help Roshan be harder to kill then, so that you could give the Radiant the chance to actually get the Dire off guard while they're trying to Roshan, because Roshan is harder to kill. They have more time to react to this. And the Roshan bounty has been rescaled. It gives more early, because really not many people can burst down Roshan early game, but then it gives less in the late game, when Roshan is technically easier to kill, but now it's harder to kill. So really taking Roshan is now a big risk after 45 minutes, which is good. It's like the Radiant has the better jungle. You can do the 3-camp pull in the Radiant jungle, but you can't do that in the Dire jungle. But generally, Dire has a little bit of advantage in terms of Roshan, as Roshan is in their side of the map. So you have to keep that in mind. Now, onto the hero updates. We've got Alchemist, right? In a couple, maybe 3 or 4 patches ago, there were, due to Dota 1 law, there were some heroes that were like nocturnal heroes. So let me give you an example of these. Priestess of the Moon, Mirana, right? As you can even see from the name, before we even go into the lore, she's the Priestess of the Moon. So it would make sense for her to have increased night vision. Meepo had increased night vision because kobolds had increased vision in darkness, because they could only live in darkness as the light hurt them, for example. Who else? Leshrac had increased night vision. Luna still has increased night vision because of her passive. And Alchemist, for example, as you can see now, had increased night vision more than average. The average night vision is 800, but these heroes like 1,000 and something. But the funny thing is, all those other people were nerfed and didn't have that increased night vision, but Alchemist still had. And this really made him overpowered, because now people started using, like, after Alchemist got the change, the rework to his ulti, didn't give HP, bonus HP, instead it gave bonus HP regen. And then people started running him as a support because he had a high potent physical stun, which did a lot of physical damage, which is really good in the early game. And it scales into the late game because it's physical. And also you could amplify the damage with stuff like medallion and minus armor from any other minus armor source, whether it be spells or items. And it was a long range, and you could charge it up before you actually get into battle for it to do the maximum duration. But of course, if you didn't time it correctly, you would stun yourself after that duration wore out. So if they run away while you're still charging and the timer hits 0, it blows up on you. But it was a really good stun. And what made Alchemist Rome overpowered, and most people just do Alchemist Rome with Earth Spirit, and Earth Spirit's stuns were instant stuns, which were seen as overpowered by the community. So they'll just have that insta stun and then he could stun. And it was hard to fog Alchemist when he ganked because he had increased night vision. So really he could see you wherever you go, unless you do like a blatant fog in the bushes where he can't see you anymore. But this nerf means that the Alchemist gank will be the roaming Alchemist has been nerfed, and really like for example the time to charge up the stun has been reduced, so now he has less time to charge up the stun to full momentum, so he really has to either commit early and do a less damaging stun, or risk stunning himself and killing himself, in the sense that now he's stunned, he's done damage to himself, now you can fight him, you know what I mean? And the night vision means, of course, you can't. It's easier to juke him now. You can just juke the stun and let him stun himself. Before, it was really hard to do so. But of course, experienced supports can still use this hero to its maximum potential, because I like the way certain ways things are balanced. Instead of nerfing the damage of his stun, they just make it harder to stun. That's a really that's a good balancing mechanism I like. But some of these programmers and Ice Frog have kind of gone up, like they didn't really do it well. Like there's sometimes like with Lycan and with Morphling where they over nerf and reduce the damage and everything. Now the hero can't do what it's supposed to do, and then the hero is left in a weird spot where really you can still try and make him work, but it's really hard and unnecessary. But then there's some heroes like this with Alchemist, whereby if you're really high skilled with Alchemist, you can still be very effective and dominate the game. But it's really hard to do so. But your damage is still the same. If you land the damage will never change. And back in the day, there was a little bug whereby while the stun is in midair flying, it's still charging up. So you could release it earlier, like maybe 1 or 2 seconds, throw the stun, and in the air it will reach its maximum potency and still stun for max damage. So this would remove that bug that was in the game. Ancient Apparition has been receiving buffs to try to help him get played, as really the hero is too squishy, he has little armor, but his spells are really good. So now the Ice Vortex is the AoE you put on the ground, which slows people and then amplifies damage dealt to them when they're in that vortex or they are leaving the vortex. So at all levels, it's increased spell damage amplification, which is good, which means a buff to the spell. And the duration has been increased by 4 seconds, so it will last a longer. So it will help you manage your mana in the sense that you don't need 2 to try cover an area for a shorter period of time. You can have 1 in a strategic place that they'll have to walk through, and it will last longer, so you don't have to waste that much mana. And then the stickiness aura. The stickiness aura is like when you've walked in and you're walking out, there's a fade time whereby you're still affected by the vortex even though you've walked out of it. So this used to be 0.1, now it's 0.5. So that means when you walk out, the aura on you from the vortex lasts longer. So that means it's easier to get that damage amplification bonus that that spell granted you. So it's just a buff all around to the spell. Mana Void radius has been increased, which is Mana Void is Anti-Mage Ultimate, whereby if you drain someone's mana and you use it on them, damage is dealt, like it takes how much mana they're missing, gives it a multiplier of 0.6, and then deals that as damage. So if they have a lot of mana missing, they take a lot of damage, and then in that small AoE of 300 in the past, it's now 450. It does damage to anyone standing next to that particular hero. But the damage is dealt after calculation, in the sense that if a guy was missing 1,000 mana, it would do 1,600 damage, but it won't say since this other guy next to him is on full mana, therefore it will do no damage. No, it will still do 1,600 damage on the guy standing next to him, since that other guy was missing 1,000 mana. And also, it's added, Valve has added a AoE targeting cursor for the Mana Void. So now what this means is, if you've noticed moves similar to Sven's stun bolt, his stun. Sven's stun, when you click on the stun, you have a reticule to target the particular unit you want to hit, like select that unit, and it shows you the AoE around that unit of the other units that will be affected. So with Anti-Mage, when you hit Mana Void, this is how I believe it would work. When you press Mana Void, you'll see the reticule to select your target, and then it will actually show you an AoE of the targets that will be affected. Because back in the day, you never used to know, for example, who's within the 300 AoE and who's outside of the 300 AoE. Now you'll know who you're gonna burn extra, so you can actually time your ulti to actually catch multiple units, knowing that you will catch multiple units instead of just guessing in your mind what a 300 diameter AoE is. So that's buff pretty much to Anti-Mage's spell. I think I like it in terms of team fight. It means now it's a small little buff, because usually anti-mages would just blink in and try kill someone and mana void them, but really they never used the mana void for the AoE damage. They just used it to make sure that unit died. But now you can actually use it in an AoE to try catch other units as well. X has been receiving buffs, but I still think this won't make him viable, because really before level 6 and after level 6 let's go through the changes and I'll explain it. His base HP regen has been increased up to 3. X is a strength hero, so that means he has high HP, so the high HP regen on base is really good. That makes him more survivable. Whether you're jungling him or he's in lane, he can take more damage and recover a little bit better than he used to in the past. Berserker's Call is the move where X taunts all units around him to fight him. You may wonder why he does that, and that's of course because it's got a move whereby if anyone attacks him, there's a 17% chance to counter instantly in an AoE and do AoE physical damage. So the taunt has been, the duration has been increased. I used to feel that it used to be really short. So now at least you might have incentive putting more skill points into it, as the duration of people taunted, like the people attacking you, lasts longer. And the cooldown has been rescaled to be okay, so I guess they counterbalanced it. It's like the taunt lasts longer, but then the cooldown is longer as well, so you won't be able to spam the spell as much. But you couldn't really spam spells as X, as you had mana problems. But if you have the mana for it, you can't use it as much in the early game from levels 1 up to 3, but it's the same at level 4. Now, Batrider attack animation time improved from 0.5 to 0.3. This means the point from which you click on a creep to attack, the animation starts and he actually attacks, is way shorter. It's not the projectile speed. The projectile still moves at the same speed, but it's the rate at which the projectile is released from the animation, whereby the bat like flaps its wings and shoots fire, is really short. So that means this should help him last hit better. Because in the previous patches they reduced his base damage, because really there was a time when Batrider was OP, as he had good base damage. He had Sticky Napalm, which increased his damage and slowed units for more damage, and his skill set was really good. So they were like, Batrider on the mid lane in a 1v1 matchup is really good. So they reduced his base damage to help him get less last hits, to make it fair for the opponent facing the Batrider. But then Sticky Napalm still helps this in the sense that it still amplifies damage, but he won't do as much damage in the past. And now since he's got a better attack animation, as in he actually attacks, the time it takes to start up the attack is faster. Even though he has a smaller base damage, he can still try last it better. So you might actually see Batrider on the mid lane again, competitively and of course in public games. Beastmaster. Call of the Wild Hawk duration reduced to 60 seconds at all levels, which is a nerf, as in you can't, at level 4 you used to have the Hawk up for 80 seconds, now it's only 1 minute, which is a nerf in terms of time. The Wild Boar duration has also been reduced from having it for 90 seconds to 60 seconds flat, 1 minute only, which is a nerf in time. You can't have it for the same duration of time as you could in the past. But then the excuse me, the Call of the Wild no longer destroys previous summons on cast. So the reason why the timer was reduced was that usually if you had the boar up for 80 seconds, by the time that 80 seconds runs out, your cooldown will also be running out, and then you can summon another one. But there's no chance of you being able to summon. No, you could summon 2, but the other one would die, right? But then the way they did it now is that since the cooldown has been reworked to such an extent that there's a potential to have an uptime of 2 boars or 2 hawks with significant time on them. I don't know if my words make sense, but it's like back in the day, how can I say it? If your hawk lasted 5 seconds, right? And the cooldown for the spell was 6 seconds, for example. That means that even if you cast it again and they allowed you to have 2 hawks, one hawk would still only have 1 more second to live. You know, no, actually, one hawk would die by the time your cooldown comes off, and you won't even have time to be able to spawn two or spawn one to kill the other one. So now you can have two boars and either two boars or two hawks, depending on how much mana you have, and you could have your own army. So it's like if you don't have wards, you could actually summon two hawks to cover two spots, which is actually quite cool for Beastmaster. I think it's a nice buff. In the previous patch, they split the abilities to be able to summon a hawk and a boar, which is, I really like the utility they're bringing to Beastmaster. I think more people should start playing him, really, as he is a solid offlaner. He's decent mid, and he brings utility for the team and the AoE and the stun, which has an AoE slow that goes through BKB. So I think is really a good hero. Bloodseeker, first bonus speed and damage rescaled from 7 up to 28 to 5, 15, 25, 35. So it's bad at level 1. It's worse than it was at level 1, but then from levels 2 up to 4, it's better. First bonus move speed. So it's like the more people, like if someone is below the HP threshold, so if there's someone in the opposing team who's 40% or less, sorry, I've been a bit sick from winter. Anyone who's less than 40% will have would give you more damage and more move speed, pretty much at level 2 onwards for your thirst, which is a buff. And Bloodbath now gives the full hero kill benefit instead of half if the hero dies within 350 AoE of Bloodseeker. So what would happen is, if there's an intense fight and Bloodseeker needs HP, he would try get the last hit on an enemy hero to get the full heal. Full HP heal so you can continue fighting. But the problem with this was, if one of your teammates got the last hit on that hero, you only got half the HP. So you'll have less health and chances are you might die soon after. But now, if you're in a 325 AoE of the hero who died, you still get that full heal even though you never got the last hit on the guy. So it's to buff Bloodbath in that sense, in the sense of survival for Bloodseeker. Small buffs, I don't know really if this will make Bloodseeker better, but you know, for the people who play him, I guess you have something to be happy for. Brewmaster, on the other hand, his ultimate has been reduced in terms of cooldown. So now, even without a Aghanims, like at level 1, you have to wait 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Still a long time to wait. And I still think Aghanims is a must to get on Brewmaster, or not a must, but is a good item to get on him. But at least they've reduced the cooldown to be more manageable without, like when you're still farming for the Aghanims, your ult isn't as big a restriction as it was before, as the cooldown has been reduced at all levels. Bristleback base damage reduced by 4. This doesn't really affect the hero that much, as the hero will still be played a lot, as all his skills are good, and the reduction of 4 doesn't really change much. It only affects his last hittings in a 1v1 matchup. So for example, when you go Bristleback mid, or you go Bristleback in a lane against a 1v1 matchup, that's when the 4 base damage reduction will actually matter, as you might be missing some last hits sometimes. Now, Broodmother was reworked in the previous patch to be able to like spin webs, and her webs wouldn't break trees, and you could walk through the webs whether people see you or not, and you could go on any terrain that has a web. You could even go outside the map, of which I believe was a bug, but it was a bug that lasted in the game a long time, and people used to hate Broodmother because it was really hard to defeat Broodmother. I believe Broodmother was a good hero in the past, but she was the least used by the community, and not saying she was top tier, but she wasn't as bad as people thought she was. But since no one used to use her, Ashro kind of thought to himself, I believe, that he had to buff her even more, to such an extent that she was like using her would grant you instant benefits, for example. So they changed her. So back in the day, spin webs would break trees, and then you'd be like invis within the web. You couldn't go through unpassable terrain. You could only go on the web. But the web broke trees, so people could still chase you down if they dust, sentries, etc. And then they changed that. Now, if you spin webs, your webs grant you vision of like 200. And you could walk through whatever. It's like webs didn't break trees anymore, so you could walk through trees with webs. You could walk, like if you set up webs outside the map where no units can pass, you could walk in those areas, which kind of made it almost impossible to be ganked. almost impossible. There, of course, if you get stun locked and dusted before you can get into these places, then then they could kill you. But it was really hard. So now what they changed is that you can no longer leave map boundaries, so you can't go through places like on the outside of the map where no one can go. And the river spots on the side lanes, like the river sides that you can't actually walk on, those spots I don't think you can go to. And this is the same for Spectral Dagger, for Spectre, Bat Rider. I don't know if this affects Visage's bats. If it affects Visage's bats, it's not that big a deal enough because they can still fly over trees. But it was also good to be able to escape with the bats on unpassable terrain so that they couldn't get hit. I hope this doesn't apply to Visage bats, but it does not say. It just says Spectre, Bat Rider, etc. Spin web no longer grants vision. Of course, like you could put the web and it would grant you vision on that spot even though you're not there. And free pathing is now removed when enemies have vision over you. For example, if you are revealed by dust and the enemy has vision over you, you will not be able to run into trees anymore. So you can still hide in trees and pounce and gank people from the trees or gank supports from the trees. But as soon as they can see you or they dust you and you can't go invis. So it's like, for example, if they don't have dust, you can still wait for the fade time to go invis and they can't see you anymore and you can walk back into trees. But now is if they dust you, that means you can't go invis anymore as they can still see you. And you can't walk back into trees. So this makes it easier for people who are chasing you down to kill you. So these are nerfs to Broodmother. I think these were nerfs that were necessary because the mechanic that they employed was good. It was ingenious in terms of making the hero better. I really loved the change to Broodmother, but then you could manipulate it in certain ways to really break the game. And if you're breaking the game, no matter even if it was a buff to the hero that the hero needed, if you're breaking the game, then it's no longer fair to other people. So it's like, it's a nerf that I'm happy with. It won't stop Brood. I think as much as maybe Broodmother may be seen less by the lower skilled people who didn't really like the hero but they were abusing the game, they might stop using her. But for the high skilled Broodmother users who already liked using her before this is still, either way, it's like even though she's nerfed, she's still viable, I believe. Cooldown Stampede has been reduced at all levels. In the past, it was 60 seconds from level 1 of the ultimate all the way, and then that was too OP. Those were the days I used to use Centaur. I got a lot of wins with Centaur, and then they reworked him such that the Stampede had really high cooldown. It didn't do as much damage. It didn't stun anymore and stuff like that, and it really hurt Centaur, and then I stopped using him. And this might be the buff that could make me start using Centaur again. I really love Centaur. I really thought he was a good hero when he first came out in Dota 2. When his ulti was reworked, he was really overpowered. Even I admitted it, those games were easy for me, and I got insta wins most of the time. And anyone who was good with Centaur won with Centaur. There was always a joke that if your Centaur doesn't have many kills, that person can't play Dota. It's that simple. Now with Clockwork, changes to Clockwork, hits required to kill power cogs has been rescaled. In the past, you'd have to, at all levels of power cogs, you'd have to hit it 3 times to break the cogs. So the problem was that usually when you cog people in, they accepted their fate. They're like, I can't run away from this guy, I might as well right click him, hope to survive, but chances are I'm dead. Now the nerf to power cogs actually promotes player collaboration with each other. So it's like, for example, if you're a support and a carry in one lane against a Clockwork, no matter the matchup now, what we can do is the person who's in cogs can try target the cog behind him once and hope to hit it once, and the support who's outside the cogs can hopefully hit it once, and the person is free to run away. But back in the day when it was, well, current situation now and before, when it was 3 hits, it was kind of hard to get those 3 hits in. That's a lot of hits, especially if you attack slow in the early game. But now it's like 1 hit from the person in the cogs, even 1 hit from a creep outside the cogs, if the creep manages to aggro, but that doesn't happen, and 1 hit or 1 hit from the support who's outside the cogs, and then the carry is free to run away. Crystal Maiden base intelligence reduced by 3. That means she should have like 39 less mana. Crystal Maiden is still a good support, even though they're reducing her intelligence. It means that now you have to either carry a few more extra branches or a mantle of intelligence to get the same amount of mana pool you had before in the past, because in the past at level 2 you had enough mana to do the nuke and freeze someone to stun them and do damage to them. But now it depends. If you used your nuke at level 1, by the time you get level 2, you might not have enough mana to actually cast both spells. So you might need more branches, or you have to get either maybe 1 or 2 more branches or a mantle of intelligence to counteract this base intelligence nerf to her, as her nukes are really good at in terms of stunning and slowing and damage. So the less mana she has, of course, the less mana she has to be able to spam those spells. Iron Shell cooldown reduced. Darkseer was officially, not officially, but past couple of nerfs, patches, he had been nerfed to such an point whereby he really can't be used, is not really used that much, is not popular anymore, as they were nerfing all his skills. They were nerfing Vacuum, they were nerfing Iron Shell, they were nerfing the cooldowns of his spells as well. So now they're reducing the cooldown of his Iron Shell to help you stack Iron Shells faster on creeps to try push the wave faster and annoy the opposing carry and supports. I don't think this will still make Darkseer popular again, but you can see it's a step in the right direction. They're just slowly buffing one thing, small thing at a time, because like if they return him to what he was, he would be overpowered again. So it's like they're just trying to buff him slowly to reach a point whereby they can realize, okay, this character is now good, let's leave him, instead of giving him big buffs which will make him overpowered. Then they'll have to nerf a little bit and then try find the balance. Dazzle Weave duration has been increased, so this is the duration. Like Dazzle Weave is his ulti. If you cast it on your allies, they gain bonus armor up to 25, but it's not an instant 25 armor, it's a gradually increasing up until 25 armor. And or if you cast it on enemies, it's a negative 25 armor, and it gradually decreases, so it's not instant decreasing or addition. So now it lasts longer. So if you, back in the day, you had 25 armor, like if it increased up to 25 armor, the increase of armor would only be for 20 seconds, but then now it's a 4 second, it lasts 4 seconds more. So that means his ulti is better, it's more effective, and of course if you get an Aghanim Scepter, it's that much more better. Ice Frog had been buffing Death Prophet because, you know, not many people use Death Prophet. Like, for example, amongst my friends on Steam who play Dota, I'm one of the few people who consistently plays Death Prophet sometimes, and he had been buffing her Exorcism and to do more damage with the ghosts. And now to help, because now the new meta really is like aggression and pushing, really. Not to say like my opinion's correct, but the way I view the way the game is working is towers grant more gold, stopping hero kills cost more gold. But really, if you can push towers and gain map advantage, chances are you're winning, because there's no way to come back from tower loss anymore. It's really up to pushing. Jungling is not effective, as jungling gives less gold and less experience. So if you are down on towers, you can't just go hide in the jungle and get big items. Chances are you'll still lose. So really, Death Prophet had seen, she hadn't been, even though she was buffed, she never really got an increase in how can I say it, people using her. But really her ult was now good for pushing even at level 6 at its first level, and really she could push waves with the Q, which is Crypt Swarm. Then ult, take down the tower, or in push lineups. I still say that going Necrobook on her, if you want to push, is really good, as really it's a strong push. If you have ulti and Necrobook on a tower, that thing will melt. And the AoE of her silence has been increased. I think silence is a really undervalued spell, but I really think it's a powerful spell, because think about how much supports and even carries really can't do much. Like, it depends though on which carry we're talking about, but most people really find it hard to fight if they're silenced for 6 seconds. They cannot cast spells, they cannot use their ultimates. The only thing they can do is right click and hope to win. So the AoE has been increased to help you try catch more people in the silence. Dragon Knight, his Dragon Tail, which is his stun, the cooldown has been reduced from 9 seconds at all levels to 12, 11, 10, 9. I think this is I don't know if I could call it enough, but let me tell you my thought process. The thing is with Dragon Knight's stun is that his stun was 2.5 seconds at level 1, which is the longest stun at level 1 in the entire game. So what most people do is they would only get 1 point, because the scaling after that is really bad, because I think at level 4 it's like 3.2 seconds, so that's only an increase of like 0.7 of a second. And that's not worth, and the damage is not really all that great, so it's not worth putting 3 extra skill points. So now, really, you could just use one stun and then put your skill points in every other spell until you max out every other spell, and then put down and put your remaining skill points into stats in the stun. But now that the cooldown is higher at the earlier levels, it might force people to start taking less levels of their passive to get more levels of the stun, so that you can be able to stun twice in a fight, for example in 18 seconds, instead of having to stun twice only after 24 seconds. So it's putting variety in Dragonite skill builds, which is okay, but it's a nerf generally. They reworked Drow Silence, and the old Silence used to be like Death Prophets. It's the AoE. Anyone caught in the AoE silence for 6 seconds at max level, and it had a 900 cast range, 300 AoE spell, cooldown 13 seconds, 90 mana cost. And then now the way they've reworked it is that it's a 250 AoE. So think about Lina's Dragon Slave ability, that fire blast that Lina does. And that same AoE travels 900. And it silences for 6 seconds like in the past, but then they introduced a knockback, so if anyone's near you, they are knocked back. Let's see, inversely proportional to travel range, 350 at the closest, and 100, a 0 at 900. So if they're at the end of the silence, they won't be knocked back, but anyone caught below the 900 travel range will get a knockback that's inversely proportional to the travel range. And the knockback duration is 0.2, so it's like not a mini stun, but similar to Keeper of the Light's blinding light. So the reason, you may be asking yourself, why do they do this? The reason why they did this is because Drow was reworked a couple of times. She used to be like a balanced hero that not many people used to play in Dota 1 when I used to play her. Then Ice Rock decided, let me buff this hero so that people play, and he kind of broke her, because he made her ulti give her more agility than it used to, and it was a ridiculous amount of ability. I personally still don't understand some of the thinking that goes into a game. It's like, if a hero's balanced and not many people play her, yes, give them incentive, right, to play Drow. But don't give them so much incentive that it breaks the game. And you may be arguing that, no, they're just rebalancing, but the rate at which they try rebalance is so slow, it's like they're just mocking you. But anyway, now the way the ulti works is that it gives you 80 bonus agility at highest level, and that 80 agility is doubled if no one is in your, is it 350 AoE? You get 160 agility, I think, at third level. But if anyone crosses that 300 AoE, in the past, instead of getting 160, like this is after they broke Drow, if someone got into 160, you only get 80 instead of 160 agility. But now, if anyone crosses the 300, you get 0 agility from your ulti. So you start hitting for no or less damage, and you have way less armor. So you just die. You're just this bad hero. So I started advocating for new item builds for Drow. I think I've innovated one new item build, and that's getting Phase Boots, Mask of Madness, and the Force Staff on her, as I believe that she's still squishy. So it's like, Mask of Madness makes you take bonus damage, but since you're squishy and ranged, really it doesn't matter, because you need to do as much damage before you die, because you're going to die. So the Mask of Madness helps you do more damage, and it helps you move faster, so it's easier to evade people who are crossing that AoE. The Phase Boots the active gives you phase, which increases your movement speed to help you against people. You can kite people and escape the people who are trying to break your AoE. And also the Force Staff is for anyone who has, for example, a Blink Dagger. If they blinked directly into your AoE, you can instantly Force Staff your way out and then Frost Arrow them to kite them and slow them before they break that AoE again, and then you use your Phase Boots and then you try run out and try kite them some more. So you can play as similar to Sniper, except Sniper doesn't have a damage reduction mechanism when you cross a certain radius, but you have to fight from range. And I believe that Mask of Madness, phase boots, and a force staff are a must in this day and age. But then now they rework the silence to push people outside of your AoE, like outside of the AoE that gives you your ultimates when they get in close, which is good, as it kind of gives the same impression of the force staff, whereby if someone breaks the AoE, you just force staff yourself out and you're at range again and then you start attacking. But if you're silenced, you can't use your silence, so, well. I assume if they have BKBs, this won't work as well. Not too sure. Earth Spirit now. Earth Spirit had been deemed overpowered over and over and over and over and over again. People had been crying about how overpowered Earth Spirit is. The way I viewed Earth Spirit was that he had a really low win ratio, right? And the only people who, I believe, really showed how overpowered Earth Spirit was were high skill users, as not many people could actually use him well. For example, amongst my friends, I'm the only person who can even play the hero. And yes, it's like if you could find someone who could use Earth Spirit to his maximum potential, then you could start seeing some certain things of certain aspects of the hero that made him a bit too good for the game. But amongst the people who were generally complaining about the hero, they couldn't even use the hero, they just complained. So I really hated that aspect. But yes, he did need some balancing. But I was scared that they would over-nerf Earth Spirit to such a point whereby he's no longer the same hero. But these are the changes I like to see. This is the balancing I like to see. And let me explain it. Earth Spirit had the two moves that people used to cry about the most. Well, there were three. But the two main moves are Geomagnetic Grip and Boulder Smash. Geomagnetic Grips pulls either a creep, it pulls any unit really, whether it's a ally or a creep or a stone remnant, right, to your position. So if it's a stone remnant, it does damage and stun. If it's just like your ally is on the other side of enemy, if you pull him, they don't stun the enemy hero, but they deal the damage. Or you could use it to save people, right? And then Boulder Smash was a punch. You could punch a remnant through people to deal damage and silence people. And or you could punch your ally to initiate and he'll deal damage when he passes through someone and then initiate, for example. Or you could punch a creep or any other unit really. Or you could punch an enemy creep. You could punch an enemy unit away from you or towards your friendly people. So now what they did is that people were complaining that Geomagnetic Grip, if you just put a stone behind someone and pulled it instantly, it's an instant stun you cannot react to ever. Even if you have a BKB, it's like you have to have like a fraction of a second reaction and instantly BKB as soon as you see the stone being placed behind you, right? So yes, it was a problem. And so it was an instant AoE stun because it travels in a straight line. If you put it behind people, you could stun them more. And Boulder Smash was hard to do because like you have to put the stone in front of you and punch it hoping that you are facing the direction you want to face. So that's the hardest spell to hit. And it had the silence, the 5-second silence at level 4. So what they did with this patch change is that they switched them around. The harder to hit move being the Boulder Smash now only does the 125 damage that the grip used to do, and it does the stun. And the stun duration is still the same, but it's worse at level 1 by a fraction, like 0.25 of a second, which you won't really notice, I think. So the harder to land ability, which is Boulder Smash, where you hit the boulder in the direction you're facing, which is genuinely hard to land, is where the stun is at now. So now it's harder to stun, and the Boulder Smash radius was slightly reduced. So yeah, it's harder to stun pretty much, but you can still get an AoE stun. So the hero is technically, in the respects of AoE stun, the hero is technically still the same. And then the grip that used to pull stones and insta-stun people if you did it fast enough, now has the scaling damage, which has more damage up to 225, as you can see. And it does the silence. So now they just switched it around. The easy to land move is a 5-second silence. And really anyone who has a silence in a game, it's easy to land, really. And yes, silences change matches, but not as much as stuns, I believe. So it's like instead of making the character worse, they just made it worse for people who couldn't use the character. Pretty much. If you're still high skilled with Earth Spirit, you just need to get into a lobby, practice a bit more, and you're back to your former glory, really. But it's hard to be overpowered with Earth Spirit, but he can still be very, very, very good. And the fact that you've got an insta 5-second silence, this actually, I believe, Boulder Smash now, not Boulder Smash, Geomagnetic Grip now makes him a very effective mid hero, because in a 1v1 matchup, a instant 5-second stun, 5-second silence at level 4 of grip is really strong, because now the mid hero you're facing has no way of casting any spells on you to stop your initiation. So, for example, what you can do is you can pull the rock through him, silence him, kick the rock back at him to stun him. But, of course, you need skill. But this is how I think you could pull the rock to silence him, kick the rock at him to stun him, and then place another rock and roll into him and ult. And for those 5 seconds, he cannot cast anything. I actually like this. In a way, it's a nerf in the sense that it's harder to stun people, but it's a buff to Earth Spirit on the mid lane. I actually really love this change. People are saying, oh, it's a nerf, it's a nerf, it's a nerf. But I actually like these changes as I play mid a lot, and this will make the Earth Spirit mid matchup very good, I think. And also, they didn't nerf his ability to save allies. He can still pull allies directly towards him and save them. So he's still a good hero, and he still kicks things for the same direction. The same unit's speed. So these are the nerfs he needed, but these are not the nerfs that will make the hero useless. These nerfs just changed. It's a rework of the hero, but he's still very good. Very, very good. Rolling boulder can now be interrupted as he's starting the roll now, because usually before you had to wait for him to start rolling, but the roll was so fast, it would be hard to stun him. So now as soon as you see him starting to roll, you can instantly stun him, which is a nerf, because he was way too mobile for people to manage at some points in time. Geomagnetic grip now kills trees along the path of a dragged ally hero. So people used to complain that, for example, if someone's on the other side of trees, and you're on the other side of trees, right, and they were ganking that person, you can push them through trees and save them. That's still possible. You can still save them. But now they break the trees. So if, for example, if it's on flat ground and you pull them through trees, he'll break those trees and people chasing him can still run through the trees. So this is to kind of balance out the fact that he can save everyone, but he can't save everyone through trees. If that makes sense. So it's like he can still save people. He can still pull them like max distance all the way to himself to safety, which is still good, because I believe if they messed around with the range, then you couldn't really save people as effectively. Then Earth Spirit would be bad, and then people would be happy that, because I really hate, like, if you haven't noticed from this patch update, I really hate nerfs that make the hero not perform in the way he was meant to be. Earth Spirit is supposed to be a very versatile hero that can cover every role. So if you take away the roles that he's supposed to cover, then he's lost his versatility. Then it's like, why pick Earth Spirit when I can pick someone else? You know what I mean? I hate those buffs. I hate those nerfs. But these are the nerfs I appreciate. Just changing up things and making it more balanced, not breaking things and making it negative. Link and Sphere, counter to most single target spells, now counters Boulder Smash. Fixed being able to cast grip on magic immune units. I guess these were just bugs in the game. Fixed Boulder Smash being able to target magic immune units so you could kick people with BKB on. And rolling boulder travel distance going further than intended if you use a storm remnant near the end of the roll. That was a bug. What you could do is you could roll as the roll is about to stop. You place a stone and then you go the extra mile. So it was a bug in the game that people abused, but it's a bug. You can't say Earth Spirit is broken just because there was a bug in the game. Yes, it's broken because of the bug, but it's not an intentional bug, so don't put the hero in a negative light. I still think Earth Spirit's a good hero, and I still think people play him, and I still think he's gonna rock. And I'm like what I did there is gonna rock. But anyway, I'm gonna play more of him when the patch comes out, and I hope to do well. Because now your high skill plays are actually rewarded. Back in the day, it's like you pull off a high skill play and people will be like, oh, Earth Spirit's overpowered. You're such a noob for picking an overpowered hero. Now if you make plays with him, it shows you have skill. And I'm willing to show people some of the skill I have. But anyway, Earth Spirit, Earth Shaker. Base movement speed increased by 10, which is a buff in the sense that now at level 1 he can try move faster to get in position to fissure and block people in and stun them. And his strength gain increased by 0.4, which means at level 10 he has a bonus 90 HP, which is okay, I guess. Who doesn't like a bonus 90 HP? And of course it does 0.4 extra damage each level. Not 0.4, but he has 0.4 more strength, which equates to more damage each level. I'm not sure the numbers though. Enchantress base armor reduced by 1. She had been seen in the pro scene. And she's really effective as a jungler. She's a very aggressive jungler in the sense that she can make ganks happen early. I guess they reduced her armor because she has so many. She's got the healing ability and the ability that reduces attacks, right click attacks. So I guess they're trying to make her squishy in some way, as she's really good. She doesn't really have many negatives. It's just a matter of, can you play Enchantress? Yes. Then okay. Then you can go play her, and there are not really that many negatives about her. Of course, she's situational. Not every hero works in every situation, but she's a situational good pick. Enigma. Black hole AoE has been increased to help you catch more people in your black hole, and the cast range has been increased so you can cast it a bit further from yourself, a little bit further, and hopefully catch more people in the AoE. This helps people black hole better, so you might see more epic black holes, and you might see more epic fail black holes. Faceless Void has been seeing some buffs a little bit. His ulti scales, the cooldown scales less, has been reduced. So the problem with this was, back in the day, if people are now above level 16, for example, and the ulti has a 100-second cooldown, if there's a team fight in Void Chronos, and that team fight goes average, or maybe doesn't go super well, and you lose the team fight, or no one dies and everyone's forced to retreat, the other team can still push, because they know your ult is gone for 100 seconds, which is a long period of time. So they'll be like, we know he doesn't have his ulti, let's push now and take the next fight, because chances are our ultis are on. So they could push against a Void team. But now, since it's been reduced by extra 20 seconds, it's only 1 minute and 20 seconds. So it helps alleviate that, like, against pushing teams in higher levels of your hero. Chances are you'll have your chrono 20 seconds earlier, which can help you try win the next fight. You now have 1,000 move speed and phase while you're in Chronosphere. This is good in the sense that now you can move from unit to unit in the Chronosphere extremely fast and try kill people as soon as possible. But it's like back in the day, people as a late game item would get Aghanim Scepter because it reduced the cooldown down to 60, which has kind of been almost solved by the the first buff. And also, you'd get Aghanims to increase the duration of the Chronosphere, because you had to like run from one person to another. But now that you move at 1,000 move speed and phase, can run through units and stuff. Actually, people might be using this to dodge skill shots. Like if Pudge wants to hook you out of the chrono or something, since you're moving so fast, you could use this to dodge skill shot moves like that. And Time Walk now costs less mana by 30, which, because sometimes in the early game, Void really doesn't have that many mana problems, but when you go against someone who drains your mana, or if you had used your mana before a fight and you now have to fight and use your mana again, chances are you won't be able to Time Walk and Chronosphere. You now have to be like, oh, I'm low on mana, so I have to try walk in and Chronosphere, and people will see you and try counter that. So general buffs for Void, but as a hard carry, I hope this will help him get better, but I'm not too sure about that. Husker Burning Spears does 1 second's worth of more damage. Husker already did a lot of damage, so I don't know why they're making Burning Spears do more damage. I guess I don't know. I honestly don't know, because in pubs, it's easy to, not easy, but you are able to do well. But in the pro scene, we haven't really seen him that much. Inner Vitality has been rescaled to heal more at all levels. This is just a buff to Inner Vitality, and Inner Vitality cast range increased by up to 550. So this is just encouraging people to get early levels of Inner Vitality to save allies, because you can cast it on allies as well to heal them. So as a healing ability, they're trying to get people to use it, because most people don't even get points into this at all. Invoker has been seeing nerfs to Forged Spirits, as most people believe that the 4-on-4 build was the only way to build Invoker, the Forged Spirit Cold Snap, and it's really good. I won't take that away from them. So they're just reducing the armor of the Forged Spirits so that you can kill them faster, and the attack range from 900 to 690, which is still an okay range, but it's not as long as it was before. But it's generally just enough to exhort Invoker, or Quas Exhort, so that people have more variety. I hated the fact that people forgot that Wex Exhort existed. They forgot that Quas Wex existed. So when, for example, I was playing Invoker, one game I'll go Quas Exhort, one game I'll go Quas Wex, one game I'll go Wex Exhort, and people be like, oh, that's so bad, just do Quas Exhort, it's the only good build. But now, the other builds are becoming more viable with the next changes. and the forged spirits aren't as reliable as people like made them out to be. So EMP has burn damage has been increased, so more damage from more mana to be burnt by the EMP, which equates to more pure damage. And EMP delay has been rescaled or reduced from back in the day to be like at its lowest level it would do 3.5-second delay before it blows up until 2 as you level up. Now it's a flat 2.6, which helps you do combos better as they nerfed EMP in the sense that if people are cycloned by either a tornado or your scepter, they don't get the burn anymore, or any other move that cyclones things into the air. As back in the day, it was easy because like you just throw the EMP and then you just cyclone people, and while they're in the air, they'll have their mana burnt and damage done to them. So now they're like when they're in the air, they cannot be EMP'd. So as you scaled up your works, though, it's like the timing changed and the timing of your tornado changed. So it's like if you're not familiar with the timings of each individual level of works and quests, then it would be really hard to land the combo effectively to get the people to get their mana burnt as soon as they land on the ground, instead of they're getting their mana burnt as they are running away, or you miss the mana burn totally because they were in the air cyclone. So this helps you land the combo better, the EMP tornado. So this could help Quasworks come back into the fray, of which I like Quasworks, but the nerf in base damage makes it hard to play in the laning phase. Alacrity mana cost reduced, that's WWE, which is the one that makes you attack faster and deal more damage. So it's costless mana, so you can spam it more often. And Ghost Walk move speed has been rescaled from negative move speed. So it's like in the earlier levels, you used to move slower for each level of I think it was Quas and Wex, and then it leveled up to a point whereby you moved at the same speed. So now it actually does bonus move speed. So it's like for the first 3 intervals, you still move slower. And then in the middle interval, you move at your normal move speed. And then after that, it starts giving bonus movement speed. So you can use this to run faster, to catch up to people, to catch up and slow them, 1. You can use it to escape faster, 2. And 3, you could use it to get to fights faster. But the cooldown's high, so it's either going to use it to get to the fight faster or escape the fight faster, but you're not going to use it twice though. Jakiro seeing slight rework / buffs in a sense. Ice Path damage has been rescaled to 50 at all levels, but now the only thing that scales is the time they're stunned. And the reason this is being is that Ice Path really was nerfed in terms of damage output. To what it was before. I think it was it did a max damage of 150 or 125 flat, and then they made it rescale from 25 to 100. So really you only wanted 1 Ice Path and then max Dual Breath and Liquid Fire, or you could go Dual Breath and Ice Path without a Liquid Fire. So now it's like you've got more variety in the sense that Ice Path does 50 damage, so it does level 2 of what it used to be at all levels, so only the time rescale. So you can now go 1 Ice Path and then go Dual Breath and Liquid Fire, which is where all your damage is mainly at. And they've done the intervals for Dual Breath such that now it's easier to interrupt regen, bottling and stuff, and generally try to increase total damage of Dual Breath is now rescaled. So it doesn't do more damage, but it does its damage faster. So technically, it's in a sense it's more damage, because if it does its damage faster, chances are it will reach its maximum damage before someone can react and wand, or react and use his magic wand, or react and use bottle and try bottle through the burns. So it doesn't do more damage, don't get that wrong. And still a lot of damage, well not a lot, but like if you have levels in, if you have 1 level in all 3 spells and you cast all 3 spells on a person, you should be doing about 210 or 205 magic, which is good at level 3. It's decent but not too great. And this helps you do damage faster pretty much as Jakira's. Usually the build up used to be slow, but now they've reworked the build up. Juggernaut Blade Fury cooldown has been reduced to help you cast your Blade Fury more often. Small little buff. Keeper of the Light Mana Leak stun duration has been increased to up to 3 seconds, which is a really huge buff, especially if you're playing Keeper of the Light against Timbersaw, and Timbersaw usually likes to chain around a lot. You could use this to stun Timbersaw for 3 whole seconds, which is really big. It's really, really big. It's like level 1 Beastmaster Roar, for example, but it doesn't do damage, so. Legion Commander, right, has been reworked. Back in the days, like when Moment of Courage procced, there were certain times where it would hit multiple times, like you'd have multiple lifesteal attacks. But now it was reworked so that it only does the proper thing it's supposed to do, and that's one lifesteal hit when it procs. But it can still proc multiple times during the grace period, for example. So they buffed the grace period to 1 second. Back in the day, it was like if someone attacked you and Moment of Courage procced, but that person was outside of your range, or if you're just not attacking, right? If you're not attacking, you would see Moment of Courage go on a cooldown, which was the cooldown, right? So it's like if you never got the chance to attack because the grace period was 0.5 seconds, it's hard to react to. Now it's a whole second. So as soon as he attacks you, you've got a whole second to face him and attack him back, and then get that lifesteal proc. So it's actually a buff. Even though it can't proc multiple times, chances are it will proc more often than it used to. So it's like back in the day, it didn't proc a lot, but when it did, you'd have multiple hits. Now it's more consistent. It's actually a buff to Moment of Courage, make it more consistent. You can rely on this move to actually grant you lifesteal in a fight now. And the cooldown's been reduced. That means generally you should have more procs. The more you attack, the more procs you get. So this is generally a buff to Moment of Courage. Let's track. Lightning Storm jumps 4, 6, 7, 8 to 4, 5, 6, 7. So it jumps less times. And Lightning Storm damage has gone from 80, 145. So it does less damage and jumps less. So I guess this is enough to the skill. But the cooldown has been reduced. So of course, how can I say it? If they reduce the cooldown, it would do too many jumps and too much damage, right? So they're like, let's reduce the damage, but let's reduce the damage and reduce the jumps, but let's also reduce the cooldown. So now you can go actually stun lightning is also now viable on the mid lane, because now at least you can spam lightning more often to get last hits to harass the other mid laner, as it's only on a 4-second cooldown. So it's a buff, but enough to damage. But it's a buff in terms of being able to use the spell reliably and more consistently. So lightning mana cost has been reduced as well, like I said, to help you spam it out more. So now you don't have to get Edict all the time, as Edict usually forces you to go into melee range, which puts you in danger in my point of view sometimes. So you can use lightning to spam lightning at range, and then push the wave with lightning at range, and then still manage to harass whoever's at the opposite end. Lina Dragon Slave, which is a fire blast like ability. Now they rescaled the AoE to be greater towards the end of the, because usually it was like it was at its largest in the beginning, but as it fades out, like tapers out, and the AoE is small. So they made that AoE at the end of the slave bigger, hopefully to help you damage more units which are at the edge of your AoE easier. And the fire assault duration has been increased. This is the buff you get for casting spells. And the move speed has been increased as well by a few percent here and there. I think it's 1% at all levels. So you get move speed, and it lasts for 2 more seconds, including the attacking faster. So just small buffs to Lina. Lion Aghanim Scepter now causes Finger of Death to hit units in a 200 AoE of the primary target. This really doesn't mean that Lion would be played more often, because for example, if you're playing him as a support, one is not that great of a support, as he can't really alleviate pressure from your carry, as he only has 1 stun and is really mana dependent. So he's not good at relieving pressure from your carry. But the Aghanim's Scepter upgrade really is for all the people who play Lion Mid. Lion Mid is good. I have no problems with it. It's really good in a 1v1 situation. But the problem with Lion is that he doesn't have an escape. So that's why most people don't play mid as well, because if they gank him, the chances of him running away are less than someone who has an escape who's on the mid lane, for example. So yeah, but now if you go mid, Aghanim Scepter really is the only way to play Lion if you go mid, as it reduces your cooldown for your ultimate Finger of Death to 20 seconds. So now every 20 seconds you can now do a AoE 1200 damage nuke in a 200 AoE. Yeah. So for example, if Magnus RPs 5 people, you can Finger of Death 5 people. It's fun. It's fun. We'll be seeing more Lion Magnus strats maybe. But really it's just a small buff to Aghanim Scepter Lion. But Lion as a hero without Ag still has some problems and some good things about him. Spirit Brace Entangle is no longer orb effect. So like back in the day, for example, if you decided to put a Desolator on the bear, when the Entangling Claws were supposed to proc, but then the what you call this, the Desolator procs, you wouldn't get one of them. So for example, if you entangle someone, just know during that attack when you entangled someone, the Desolator did not work. So usually mixing orb effects is not a good thing because they do not stack. So now at least the Entangling Claws is not an orb effect. So you could get things like Diffusal Blade or whatever other orb effect you want, or you could even get like a Helm of the Dominator or other lifesteals that are orb effects like Mask of Madness and stuff like that. And you'll be still able to entangle claws. So I think Mask of Madness might actually be an item for Lone Druid's Bear now for some people, I don't know, who want to experiment. So to help the bear move faster and attack faster, so it's always good. But you usually wouldn't want to get stuff like a Diffusal Blade because the bear does not get any of the agility, so it gets no armor, it gets no damage, it just gets the mana burn, which is meh, because really it's one damage source. It's better on illusion heroes because they'll have multiple things draining your mana. Lycan, Wolves Fade time decreased from 3 to 7, 1.7. Level 3 wolves now have the invisibility instead of the level 4 wolves having it, and the level 4 wolves now have a passive ability which gives them 15 HP regen. And this really is to help Lycan lane, of which I don't like laning Lycan because I believe Ice Frog intended him to be a jungle hero, then he nerfed him to such a point where jungling is extremely hard. Even though I've put up some videos on how to jungle Lycan, and I feel like I can jungle him competently, but usually most average people cannot jungle him good anymore. So the 15 HP bonus regen could help the level, because currently the level 4 wolves can't even take the hard camp, which is ridiculous. It's pathetic. So now the fact that they've got 15 HP regen could help them kill the large camp finally, but they're level 4. So it's really a shame either way. It's like no matter what they're doing to Lycan, I think they should just either return him to his former glory or rework him in a way that will return him to his former glory but not as powerful. It's like give the wolves back their HP but maybe take away from his damage or stats, but that would hurt the hero. So it's like Ice Frog has put himself in a very sticky situation trying to make Lycan work again, and really no matter what he does, I'm really sad. I'm really sad that he broke the hero. But anyway, we'll see how these changes work. Maybe this could work, because maybe if the passive HP regen was on the level 3 wolves or level 2 wolves, then definitely jungling Lycan could be back in the game, but it's only level 4. By the time your wolves are level 4, you're level 7, and I don't really think jungling will be hard anymore, because by that time you should have your Vlads and your Medallion and your Bottle, so life won't be hard anymore. So this really is only to help the laning Lycan. Magnus base intelligence increased by 2. So you've got 26 more mana in your pool at level 1, which should help you spam at least maybe one more shockwave. Which isn't really that much because it doesn't do that much damage, but it's more damage either way. Mana shield damage absorption has been increased at all levels, so that for each point of mana, Medusa can tank more damage. So this has made Medusa more tankier. Since it's such a late game carry, people usually try gank her early, and she has tough time surviving without her ultimate. So this should help her survive if she has the mana to do so. Meepo, Divided We Stand, the hero, like they rescale. Back in the day, it used to be the standard level 6, 12. Was it 6, 12, 16? No, 6, 11, 16, I guess. I don't know. For some reason, I've forgotten where ults are scaled. But anyway, now you can get your ulti at level 3 and level 10 and level 17. So you get your ulti earlier, and it's got a passive which reduces your revive timer. So now we can look at it in 2 ways. As a Meepo player, I can say it's a buff and a nerf. Because usually, like after they change the ulti and you can get it at level 4, for example, you'd have 1 net and 2 poofs, right? Or 1 Geo Strike and 2 poofs. So you have 2 poofs worth of damage on 2 Meepos at level 4. Now, if you get your second Meepo at level 3, you have to remember that your Meepos don't get shared stats anymore unless you have an Aghanim Scepter, and I doubt you'll have an Aghanim Scepter at level 3. So that means your level 3 clone will be so squishy. My goodness, that thing will die fast if you're not careful. Don't take it to mind that you've got 2 meeples at level 3. The only good thing about that is that now you can jungle even earlier. You know what I mean? You can leave the lane even earlier. So I could see Meepo, like, if you're rocking dual lanes 2-on-2, you could just stick Meepo in the hard lane just to get level 3, not to get farm. And then as soon as he gets his level 3, he can leave, like, the Mirana there, for example, to solo, and then he can just run to the jungle. So that's the nerf part of it, in the sense that that Meepo you get at level 3, the extra one will be so weak because there are no shared stats anymore. So it will die extremely fast, so you can just be bottling and salving up and jungling from level 3. And since you reach level 5 significantly faster than more old people, because you can gain experience in multiple lanes, the revive timer reduction is good, because when you do die, your revive is usually longer than everyone else. So now it kinda just reduces it to be standard with everyone else. But I think in the early game, it's a nerf, in the sense that the second Meepo won't have that much HP and other stats. But it's a buff in the sense that now, at least at level 3, you can actually have 2 Meepos to jungle. You can send one Meepo, like you can use your main Meepo to gank. Don't use your secondary Meepo because that one's weak. Or you can use it to be aggressive in your lane with supports if you're rocking a tri-lane. I actually see Meepo now as a tri-lane hero. Significant one too. Morphling, you can now cast and attack while in waveform. They're returning him to what he was by TI2. Back then you could cast spells during waveform, and then Ice Rock went on a nerfing spree and nerfed him to everything. He made the ability morph cost less mana, so it was hard to morph stats, and then you couldn't cast things during waveform, and then he nerfed everything, because Ice Frog has got a tendency sometimes of just deciding to nerf everything and make the hero not worth it anymore, which I do not agree on. But now he's returning it, as probably you saw that he went overboard. You know, at least I appreciate the fact that he understood that he made a pathetic mistake, and now he's returning it back. So now you can cast your TP while in waveform, you can attack while in waveform. I don't know if you can cast spells in waveform though. Wrath of Nature mana cost increased slightly. This won't really affect Nature's Prophet play at all. It's just a little bit more mana. That's all. Carry extra clarity. That's the only thing I can say. Carry one more clarity and you'll be playing the same Nature's Prophet again. Death Pulse now hits units in fog. This is okay for Necrolite, as sometimes you may cast Death Pulse, but as soon as you cast it, people will fog you, and then that's pretty much mana wasted as you hit nothing. Crippling Fear Night Mist chance increased. So this makes it more viable to using it on carries to make them miss more as they're attacking. Nyx Assassin cast range of Impale now matches the travel range. So now actually this should help you catch it, right? This has no impact on the length or the area of the Impale covers. So usually, I think what this implies is that if someone is at the max range, right, then they're not in the range where they can escape. They'll be hit at the tip of the AoE. They'll still get hit because they're at the tip. It will instantly stun them, instead of them being, because since now it's no longer a targeted spell, if you cast it on someone who's at max range, they just need to take one more step and then they've escaped the stun altogether. But now if they're at max range, you can still stun them instantly. So that's actually a big buff to Nyx Assassin. Nyx Assassin's a really good hero, really good hero, who had been nerfed a little bit, but then now is seeing a few more buffs. I don't know why. Unrefined Fire Blast, which is the second stun you get from having an Aghanim Scepter, no longer costs 400 mana, which was a lot, because as a support, or just as Ogre Magi as general, 400 mana is a lot. And in a fight, you had to be sure how to use your mana, because if you use the Unrefining Fire Blast way too often in a fight in the late game, you might find yourself with little mana to contribute anymore in fights. So now it just costs 60% of your mana. So even if you have 1 mana, you can still cast Unrefining Fire Blast, because it will take 0.6 of your mana. You'll always be able to cast the spell, pretty much. So this is only good for Aghanim's Ogre, and really the only people who get Aghanims on Ogre Magi usually won't be playing support anyway, because supports have to build other items, or if you are winning so hard you've got so much money and you're greedy. Unless you want to take him back into the mid lane. Ogre Magi used to be a mid hero when there were not many other good mid heroes. But if you're playing mid, then definitely Aghanim Scepter is good, as Unrefining Fire Blast has seen a mana buff. Omni Knight Degen Aura stickiness increased. So the stickiness is like when people have escaped your Degen Aura, which slows them. If they escape that area for 2 seconds, they'll still be slowed. So to help you catch up to people. This is how long the Deeper flasts on enemies after they leave the AoE. Back in by default auras are 0.5 seconds. Okay. OD, a small nerf to the cast range of the imprisonment by 50, but this is only a nerf if you're using astral imprisonment offensively to catch someone trying to run away from you, or when you're ganking side lanes. So it's not really a big nerf to OD that much. Invisible heroes now trigger blur, and blur delay reduced from 1.5. So like the way blur works is this: if there are no people, if there are no enemies near your vicinity, I forgot the AoE, you start to blur and you're not visible on the minimap, and people who look, like for example, if they know you're on the mid lane, right, and you're blurring on the mid lane, generally it's hard to see you if you're standing like in between fog and vision. It's really hard to see if you're there or not. So now if it's saying invisible heroes now trigger blur, does it mean that if, for example, Rick is behind me, I still do the blur effect and people can't see me on the minimap? Or it means that if Rick is behind me, invisible, I don't go blur anymore? If it's like that, then it will help you detect invis heroes. If it's not, then you'll never know when Rick is behind you. So I'm not really sure about the wording about this. I think it could have been worded way better, but I guess English isn't many people's first languages. It's not even my first language either. Sonic Wave Scepter cooldown reduced to 40 at all levels, so this actually gives incentives for most Queen of Pain users to get a early Aghanim Scepter, as now what you can do is you can get an Aghanim Scepter with Boots of Travel, whereby you gank a lane, you use your ulti, TP back to base, and then run to TP back to base to heal up on your mana, and then run to another lane for a gank, and by the time you get there your ult will be up again, use it again. So it makes them more effective in ganking and team fighting much earlier with the Aghanim Scepter. Ricky's base regen increased because Ricky is relatively a squishy hero and really only relies on his invisibility as an escape and the blink strike. So giving him more HP regen should help him take a little bit more damage in lane and a little bit more damage overall. Sand King's Sandstorm radius has been rescaled to a flat 555, which is the max radius he had at level 4 Sandstorm. And the reason being is that some people never usually used to max Sandstorm first anyway, or second. Usually what people do would get 4-1-1-1, and then from there on start getting stats and ulti, because usually Sandstorm wasn't used for the damage. It was used to disjoint spells and to get you that fade time to charge up your ulti. It wasn't really used to like, oh, get in there and just Sandstorm. Nah, not really. So now at least you get the maximum radius of the damage it does in the sand. The Shadow Demon, Shadow Poison max effective stacks is up by 1, which means you can do more damage with the poison, but this really only affects if you're playing Shadow Demon mid, and most people don't do that anyway, even though it's really good in certain situations. But that really won't really change much. If most people never play Shadow Demon, will still not play Shadow Demon for that. Shackle's duration has increased, which is the duration in which you hold someone for a channel. It's a channeling ability where you hold someone in place. So that has been increased, but usually people don't scale this because if you get stunned and you're so squishy, you usually die. And they have many ways to counter it. For example, they can just silence you or stun you, and people don't usually get BKB on Shadow Shaman. But this really is only a buff, in my point of view, in 1v1 matchups, whereby you can hex someone, throw your ulti, and then shackle them, as no one else is in lane to interrupt you. So this is a buff to shackles. And Mass Serpent wards can no longer trap Roshan. Usually, as Shadow Shaman, for example, if you're in Shadow Shaman mid, you could get level 6, smoke, go into Roshan, use your ulti on Roshan to ward trap him, attack him once, and then just walk away. So Roshan is aggro towards you, right? He's trying to walk towards you, but he's trapped in the wards. And he can't move, and he doesn't attack the wards, and then the wards just kill Roshan. And that's that, you've got a free Aegis. So you can't do that anymore. Global silence cooldown reduced by 10 seconds. I don't think that will really change much effectiveness of silencer, besides 10 seconds earlier on your ulti. Mystic Flare damage increased at level 2 and level 3, so it does more damage in the mid and early game for Skydeath Mage's ultimate. Sladder's bash damage has been increased at level 2, 3, and 4 to do a maximum of 100 physical damage bash at level 4, which is a lot of damage. So it can be viewed now as a crit in terms of damage multiplication. Slug's pounce damage has been reduced, and the reason being is that usually at level 9 he has 4 levels in pounce. And let's just say, no, at level 10, you'll have 4 levels in Pounce, 4 levels in Dark Pact, 1 level in Essence Shift, and 1 level in Out, for example. And his burst damage is really too high at that point, so they really had to nerf. At all points of the game, he had high base damage. So, not base damage, high burst damage. So they're trying to reduce that to make it a bit more fair. And the Shadow Dance cooldown, which is his ultimate, has been reduced by 5 seconds. So now you have it every minute instead of every minute and 5 seconds. Sniper take aim bonus radius has been increased. Take aim should be your... Wait, range bonus. Oh yeah, take aim is his passive that gives him bonus range. For some reason I thought it was his ultimate. So now pretty much you get more range, which means you can attack from afar better than you could because you have more range, and hopefully no one will close the gap and kill you, as Sniper is extremely squishy. Spirit Breaker, you gain vision over the target you're casting Nether Strike on. Spirit Breaker used to be a really good hero, really good hero. Then he got nerfed to Oblivion. And now currently what happens is that if you cast your ultimate on someone and they fog you, they can cancel your ultimate by just simply fogging you. But now when you cast Nether Strike, which is your ultimate, you gain vision over the target you've cast it on. So for example, if someone's running into fog or running up a hill and you cast it on them, you still see them on top of the hill and still hit them. And I think it still believes that if someone goes invis, it won't disjoint the spell. You'll still hit them, but they'll be invis after you hit them, so you can dust and kill them afterwards. This is a nerf to Storm Spirit that I didn't really I don't like, because I like nerfs. I like Storm Spirit, but I don't know why they're nerfing. And that's a 5 movement speed reduction, which really means a lot for me in the mid lane, as that mobility is really necessary to try get a 1v1 kill as a Storm Spirit anyway, before level 6. So I don't really know why. I guess they realize that Storm is a really good mid hero, then I guess they're gonna continue to nerf him slowly, I guess. Sven has got a base armor increase of 3 from level 1, which is a bonus 18% physical resistance. So now Sven is really tanky to magical damage. Well, not really tanky, because I don't know how much his armor is now. I forgot. I haven't played the hero recently. So let's just assume he had 1 armor at level 1. Now he'll have 4 armor plus a stout shield. You'll be blocking a lot of physical damage from creeps and heroes, which is really good. Makes him tankier early. And Warcry cooldown has been reduced. Warcry is the ability that gives you move speed and armor, so you can use it more often, which is good. So they're trying to make Sven tankier against physical damage, which is good, because usually Svens get BKBs, so that kind of sorts out your magical damage resistance, as you'll be immune to magic, but usually right clickers can still right click you down. So it gets a bit scary in that regard. But if it gets more armor and you can use his armor up spell more often, that's okay. Terrorblade cooldown reduced for Sunder. Sunder is the ability I talked about, where you swap hit points with whoever you're using it on, whether ally or enemy. And Sunder is no longer partially blocked by magic immunity. Now this is the part I don't really understand, because usually when I sundered someone back in the day when I used to use Terrorblade a lot, it was completely blocked by magic immunity, as in if they BKB'd or then you couldn't use the spell. So I always sundered when they were not immune, for example. But now what I think this means is that if you have a BKB on and you're low, No one can, like, for example, Lion can't just finger of death you and kill you instantly. You can BKB and then Sunder, so that you get that person's hit points. Because I believe if you had BKB on, you couldn't Sunder or something. That's the partially block. It was a bug in the game in that sense. But I also think that Sunder also goes through BKB now, because that was a recent nerf in 6.78, I think. So now if they have a BKB and you have a BKB at the same time, you can still Sunder and get the max swap off without any bugs happening in the game. Reflection cast range has gone from 250 to 275, which is slightly outside of melee range. I believe that this spell should have more increased cast range, because really casting this at melee range puts you in danger. So it's really risky. That's my point. So it's either they make your illusions able to cast it so that they can cast it for you, or they increase the attack range to make it more viable. Otherwise, I still think it's a good spell, but it's weak in that regard. Kraken Shell debuff for Tidehunter has been reduced. The threshold has been reduced from, like, back in the day for Kraken Shell to proc, you had to take 600 damage, which is a lot of damage you don't want to take. But now at maximum level, you only need to take 450 for it to proc, the debuff to proc on the other people. And Kraken Shell damage block has been increased. So really, the debuff threshold, really, you'll only notice it when you've now reaching level 16 and you've maxed all spells, because usually you don't get the skill early. You wanna get Gush and Anger Smash. But the damage block increase is good for those who want to tank damage in the off lane. Like when they're ganking you, you can just Anger Smash and hope Kraken Shell will save you, because it blocks that little bit more damage. So maybe you could get like just 2 points in Kraken Shell early, if you think so. If you think you need the survivability, but it's really not a big buff for Tide, as you need a lot of skill points to see small improvements in damage block. So it's not really that worth it. Timbersaw base strength reduced from 25 to 22, so that's I guess 39 less HP. You're still gonna see Timber, so this really didn't change anything, but you might see Timbersaw less against tri-lanes, because some people would offlane Timbersaw against the tri-lane and the Timbersaw would still get something against the tri-lane, but now they'll think twice against the tri-lane they're facing. Aghanim Scepter has been added for Tinker, and this doubles the cast range of Laser and Heat-Seeking Missile count. So what happens is this. In the late game, you don't really want to cast Laser that much, because Laser really makes you get in close. And when you get in close, as Tinker usually die, because you have little HP. So you Dagon from range. Usually, you just buy a Dagon and use that from range. Because Laser forces you to get into really close quarters, and that can put your life at danger. So now Aghanims helps you cast the laser double the range, which keeps you safe for Realm Laser. And now heat-seeking missile count has been increased, so instead of firing 2 missiles, you fire 4 missiles at 4 people you can see. So that's it. I guess if you want to get an eggs, at least, like if you want these buffs, you can at least get an Aghanim Scepter for him. But I still think Sheepstick Dagon is still the best build. Blink Sheep Dagon, Boots of Travel, Soul Ring. Still think it's the best, because you have the ability in the late game to permanently sheep someone, and that's way better than having double range on laser and double count on heat-seeking missiles. So it's an addition, but an addition for someone who has extra gold and they don't know what to do with it. Treant Protector Overgrowth AoE has been increased, and I think this should be your ultimate, so you can catch more people in the AoE. And Nature's Guy's cast range has been increased to 600, so if your allies are further away, you can save an ally who's near trees by casting the invis on them from further away. So just small little buffs to the Treant Protector. Troll Warlord Favor stacks has been rescaled from 2, 3, 4, 5 to 4. So at max level of Fervor, you don't have as many stacks, but the way this works is that Fervor attack speed has been rescaled from a flat 20 bonus increased to 16, 22, 28, 34. So that means from level 2 onwards, you get more attack speed than you do at level 1, but you get more stacks at level 1. So usually this means Troll's skill set can be more diverse, because they recently buffed the movement speed you get from the melee form, which has bash. So now you can go 4-4-1 and still have many stacks and like have 4 stacks of attack speed from fervor, instead of having to go like 1-4-4, because really 1-4-4 was good at building stacks, but your damage wasn't really all that good, and it was good against stationary units really, but not fleeing units. And so this can help you go 4-4-1 and still do very high damage and move speed and still have a lot of stacks. It helps a lot. Tusk. Secondary units hit by the snowball now take the same impact as the primary unit, i.e. they get stunned and take damage. Back in the day, what would happen is if people were clumped together and just snowball through people and hit the person behind them, the people who you snowball through took some damage and they were not stunned, I believe. Let's read. Yeah, so I don't think they were stunned, right? So they just took damage and they're not stunned. You don't just stun the person you intended to stun. So now they increase the damage of the snowball and the stun duration, so it to give people incentive to getting more levels in snowball, as you can now potentially stun multiple units if they're clumped up together. And Walrus Punch, the 50% threshold mechanics has been removed, because now you can just snowball in and Walrus Punch and get the crit multiplier, which is now 3.5, which has been increased from 3. Back in the days, what you'd have to do is you'd have to snowball in, use ice shards and hit them to get below 50%, and then use Walrus Punch to get the full 3 times multiplier crit. But now you can get the 3.5 times multiplier crit even if they're at full HP, so you can still do humongous damage. If you have damage items, you can still do big damage even if they're at full HP. Undying Soul Rip has cooldown has been reduced, so up until 6 seconds at level 4, so this should help you Soul Rip multiple times to heal and damage in one team fight. Vengeful Spirit armor reduction has been increased by 1 at all levels. Still think she needs more buffs than this to make her more viable. I believe that she needs like either an attack range increase, base damage increase, or a movement speed increase, or all of them at the same time, for her to get better as a support. Venomancer's base damage has been reduced by 5, and HP regen has been reduced slightly. And this is to kind of nerf the people who liked going Venomancer in 1v1 matchups, like Venomancer mid or Venomancer 1v1 against the off lane. Now he has 5 less damage, so that means he can't last hit as good. And his damage at level 1 is significantly reduced and is a little bit more squishier and slower from the last patch. So really, he's a powerful support. That's why they're nerfing him still. Visage, also another powerful support, now being nerfed. And it's saying that his base move speed has been reduced by 5, so now he should be moving at 290, I believe, or 285, which is really slow. And Grave Chill now costs 100 mana, so really it forces people who are scared about their mana to go Soul Assumption first, which is the nuke, instead of the slow. So it can put people, Visage users like myself, in a bad spot sometimes in terms of mana, but at least you still get the full damage output if you have the mana to do so. And familiars are now properly magic immune. I'm really happy about this, because I still remember back in the day, if you'd go against someone with Cleave or someone like Kunkka, they'll just hit a creep and your bats die instantly, and it really used to make me sad. And there are some spells that affected them as well, so now they're totally magic immune to most stuns and spells, and hopefully they should help Visage familiars survive during team fights, which I like. Warlock Upheaval max duration has been increased. Upheaval's the slow, so it slows for longer by 4 seconds. Windrunner Focus Fire mana cost reduced by up until 150, but since the damage is still bad in the early game, I still don't think getting this at level 6 is worth it. Focus Fire no longer has a cast animation, so Focus Fire being the animation, you can instantly cast Focus Fire. Yeah, but still, like I said, you won't be getting it in the early game, so I don't know. You can now try get it in the early game. That's the only thing that this incentive is for, if you feel your damage is good enough. Maledict AoE has been increased slightly by 15, and Voodoo Restoration initial mana cost reduced. So now you have more incentive in getting more levels in heal, because now you can heal for less mana. So like your level 4 heal, for example, is at the same mana cost as the current level 2 heal. So usually back in the day, people would max casket and get one Maledict AoE and one Voodoo Restoration and get stats to try combat this, as he was really a squishy hero, and then start getting points in Voodoo Restoration and Maledict when you have the mana to actually use them. So now you can get Restoration early, and Cast can now bounce in units in Fog of War. This is really big because usually what people would do in a team fight, or if coordinated people, what they'll do is as soon as you throw a casket, they'll just run into fog and the casket will stop. It will hit one person and stop bouncing instantly. So I don't know if this was a bug or a general bad thing about Witch Doctor, but now it doesn't work. If you throw the casket and they get into fog, then that's that, they're gone. They get stunned. Reincarnation slow increased from 50 to 75%, and reincarnation slow increased up until 5, but still, if you don't have mana, you can't use your ultimate. But still, I don't think this will make Wraith King more user-friendly. I don't think more people use him. I still think he's a good hero in terms of damage output, but the way he can be kited and the way he's so slow really hurts. Zeus Arc Lightning cast range increased slightly, so you can now cast Arc Lightning from range and do damage from higher range, as usually Zeus is very squishy and doesn't want people all up in his grill. So at least now I can do it from range. That's pretty much it for the character changes. Finally, let's try end this quick. Animal Courier bounty per player reduced. Bounty per player reduced by, I guess, by 25 because it's Flying Courier still 175. Okay, so the ground courier, since it's so easy to kill, they've made it give less gold. Arcane Boots cost 10 more mana, so it's, for example, on supports it's still a boot to get, but for core heroes, like if you're getting Arcane Boots on, let's just say on Naga Siren, for example, then it gives you 10 less mana, so it hurts a little bit more. And like I said, I'm a Storm Spirit user, so when I do want to go Bloodstone, this is going to hurt me as well. Battle Fury Cleave increased. The AoE has been increased to help people, I guess, to give people incentive to buy Battle Fury, as Battle Fury really, a lot of people used to buy it back in the day, especially when Sven got popular. But now, I don't really see many people getting Battle Fury, so it could be just incentive to buy it. Blink Dagger now costs no mana. It usually used to be 75 mana. This is actually good. This is fantastic for especially strength heroes, because think about most strength heroes who have about maybe 300 mana. That 75 mana cost to blink in and initiate, especially on a Tide Hunter, is really scary. You might not have enough mana for your whole combo, so usually what most people do is, like, for example, Tide, you like to blink in, gush, anchor smash, then ravage, right? But usually you might not even have enough mana to do all of that, so usually now, with the 75 mana less 0 mana blink dagger, you might be able to do that and not feel scared with how much money you have. You might have enough mana to unleash your whole combo, so you could even get a blink dagger on Beastmaster. Instead of getting Arcane Boots, you could just go like bottle treads with the magic wand and then get a blink dagger, because the blink dagger costs no mana anymore. And this should really help. This could make bottle more viable on Tide Hunter instead of Arcane Boots. For example, you could go bottle with treads and drums and then get the blink dagger, because the blink dagger costs no mana, which really helps. Let's see. Bottle can now be used on allies by holding the control key. I really love this, because usually I have some douchebag friends who they'll ask for a bottle charge and then take the bottle and start doing stupid things like, it's my bottle, and then they take your bottle for 5 minutes and then they'll be trolling you. So I really hated that. So now if they ask for a bottle charge, I can simply use it on them and still retain the bottle. And also for the people who just genuinely need a bottle charge, what you can do is, back in the days, you'd have to give them your bottle. Then they're like, oh, okay, I've got the bottle. Use the charge, wait. Use the charge, wait. And then transfer the bottle back to you, which is like 5 to 10 seconds of wasted time. So now bottle can actually be used in team fights, because you can instantly cast the bottle charge on someone else. I assume it's melee range. It doesn't say what range. I hope it's melee range, because if it's not, it might be a bit overpowered. The agility bonus gain from Diffusor Blade has been increased. I guess this is to try help all the illusion-based heroes that get Diffusor Blades, or melee heroes that get diffuser blades, then it gives them a little bit more agility. And remember, Terrorblade can get this as well for all his melee illusions. Drums now has 1 extra charge, which is good. That's a buff to drums, but then the recipe costs 75 gold more. The recipe cost increasing is a slight nerf, but I think drums is still such a good item with the extra charge that it cancels itself out, and drums is still really a good item. But I don't think it's good on supports, as it's a greedy item to get. It really benefits you, but doesn't really benefit your team that much. Unless your team is focused on dealing damage, you'd rather get other things that benefit your teammates more. Maybe like a bottle. You can use a bottle on your teammates for HP. You can use arcane boots to give them mana and stuff. But drums is really a greedy item. But for everyone else, for core heroes like the solo offlanes, the carries, the mid heroes, that 75 gold is a slight nerf, but at least you get 1 more charge. So drums is still really a good item. It just needs some balancing out, I guess, because it's a bit too good in terms of stats. Yule's Scepter of Divinity. The cooldown has been reduced by 2 seconds, I guess. I don't know if that's really worth mentioning. 4-staff travel speed reduced, so it takes longer for you to complete the animation of getting from one point to another. So I guess this can hurt in terms of if you need a 4-staff, like for example, if you use Drow Ranger and you've got your 4-staff and you want to get out, you move less slow. So if you're up against more mobile heroes, this can hurt you a little bit. Iron branches cost 3 gold less. I really love this change, as if you're going mid, you save on 9 gold. If you're going for a fast bottle, you save on 9 gold. That can get your bottle a little bit 9 gold faster. And I like it also on supports. Like for example, we said that Crystal Maiden's starting int has been nerfed, so you might need to get extra ironwood branches. And now those branches cost 3 gold less, so that's actually quite good. I really like the change. Some people say 3 gold is nothing, but I really value the value of 3 gold. So, Mask of Madness is seeing a slight buff because you take 30%, you deal 30% more damage when it's on, but you take 30% increased damage. So they're like, okay, fine, instead of 17% lifesteal, you get 20, so you steal more life when you hit, which is good. But it's still situational. If you get it on someone who's a bit too squishy, you might die a bit too fast. So always be careful with Mask of Madness. It's a good item, but you have to be very careful. Mjolnir, they've changed the area type in which the static charge hits units. It no longer uses a cone to determine the valid targets. It uses an AoE, but an AoE of the same distance instead. 900. 900 AoE is freaking huge. I don't know if this is talking about... Or static charge is the ability you cast on yourself and people attack you and then it's got a chance to proc. That's actually quite good. Because now you could potentially do a 250 damage nuke in a 900 AoE. You're guaranteed to pretty much get everyone in a team fight now because it's 900 AoE, which is your entire screen. Everyone in your screen is going to get hit by a Mjolnir charge. This is really, really good for Mjolnir users. We might actually see this come back on people like Sven, Dragon Knight, all these tanky guys who want to deal damage fast and can tank a lot of hits. This is actually very good. I might be building Mjolnir more often because of this. Because usually the cone-shaped meant that it procced, but then it would hit some of the people in front of you and miss everyone to your sides and behind you. And then it was like, it's only 250 though. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was really bad. It wasn't really worth getting a Maelstrom up to Mjolnir unless you needed the attack speed. But if you didn't, there was no point really. Necronomicrons are really good. I always get these in every game, no matter what hero I play, because the push is very, very strong. My friends laugh at me because they say I'm a necro gamer. I always get necros, and of which I do get necro books on almost every hero, as this is the one item in the game, second to drums, that is effective on everyone. Everyone. You need HP, the necro book gives you. You need mana, the necro book gives you. You need higher damage output, the summons from the necro books give you that. You need higher DPS, the summons from the necro book gives you that. You need pushing power, the necro book gives you that. You need mana drain, the necro books gives you that. And you need pure damage, the necro books give you that. But it doesn't give you armor. That's the only thing necro doesn't do. It's really a good item. So I've been winning a lot of games with necros, but then I knew that they had to be nerfed, so I'd been really abusing them. But now they give more gold when you get them killed. 200 gold at the last level of Necro is similar to a hero kill, so it's like you're feeding a hero kill when you get them killed. And they have way less armor, way less than they even did at level 1. And the cooldown has been increased, so the push has been reduced. And if you feed them, they give more gold and they're easier to feed now. So more nerfs to Necropoke. I understand why they're doing so, because the item is really too strong. Observer wards can now be targeted on allies. Like you use tangles to give one tango to an ally, you can give one ward, which is extremely effective now, because usually when you bought wards in the game, if you didn't have enough money to buy 2 sets of wards, then the offlaner would suffer. Because most of the wards usually go to covering rune spots and the safe lane, and then the offlane will be there, left in the dark, and they usually play offlane, and that's really hard. So at least now you can tell someone, yo, throw me at least 1 ward. At least 1. You've got 4, give me 1. Or you've got 2, give me 1. Then I can use it to ward the jungle, to see any ganks that are trying to wrap around me, or to ward a pull spot. And still have a ward at the rune spot and a ward to cover the safe lane and the extra ward. It's really strong. Radiance now gives 65 damage instead of 60. That's a 5 damage increase, and that's not the radiance burn, but just the attack damage that it gives you. Refresher orb now costs 5 gold less. Really, it's still a situational item, and really 5 gold doesn't. It's not that much, because the recipe is like still 1,800. Just a recipe, a piece of paper. So it's still expensive. Ring of Aquila now gives 3 bonus agility from nothing. Like none of the items in the Ring of Aquila equate to the extra 3 bonus agility, but now it's actually giving you the 3 bonus agility from 6 to 9 to make it almost as viable as drums. Because Aquila had been underrated, because for a 900 gold item it didn't really give as good stats. You might as well just get drums. So now they're trying to make Aquila like an equivalent, like agility equivalence to drums in a way. They're slowly just buffing it up. Maybe they'll increase the int to 6, and then increase the cost of building it. I guess the cost of the Wraith Band, I'm not too sure. But it's more buffs. Rod of Atos has been seeing buffs so many times, and I think it's such a great item on every int hero, and every support hero needs a Rod of Atos. But of course, 1, it's expensive, but it gives good stats even in pieces. If you just get the vitality booster and then get the 2 mystic staffs, it's still a good item. But no one uses it though. I don't know why. I really think, because now it gives 350 HP, 350 HP. Keep in mind that a Reaver, which is part of your Heart of Tarask, gives you about maybe on the upside of 400, maybe 400 to 500 HP. And the Reaver costs about 3,200, or is it 3,100? And Vitality booster is 1,100. And if you build that booster into a Rod of Atos, you get 350 HP. That's a lot of HP, man. It's really a lot. Sanjan Yasha, which is a good item for Terrorblade, by the way, just in case you didn't know. Now the slow duration has been increased by a second, and the slow is increased from 30 to 35. It's not really good on most people, as they're better items to get. But for people like Troll Warlord, situationally for people like Shadow Fiend, Ricky, Terrorblade, this is a good item, and it's slowly getting some buffs, but people hardly get it. Sentry wards, same thing as Observer wards. And Shadow Amulet, the thing that no one really gets. Usually people don't get this to say I've got a Shadow Amulet. They get this to say I want to make a Shadow Blade. The fade delay has been reduced to 1.5. Back in the day it used to be like 2.7. So now you fade faster into invisibility, and you can now use it on allies. So you can do cheesy things like, if they're pushing and they're still out of range, you can put a Tide Hunter in front of your tower. Use the Shadow Amulet on him, he goes invisible. And then as soon as they're pushing your tower, your 4 people can either flank them or engage them, and then Tide Hunter can just ravage from invis, which is really good. Or you can use it on a Witch Doctor or Crystal Maid and make them go invis. So it can actually be a good support item, similar to what's happened to the Lincoln Sphere. It can be a really good support item to buff other people with invisibility. Or for example, if you're a support, or if you have a Shadow Amulet and, for example, Lifestealer open wounds someone else, you can put the shadow amulet on that other person, and then they go invis, and Nyx can't do anything anymore. But yeah, shadow amulet seeing buffs, but I don't know if that will make people buy it either way. Shiva's Guard Arctic Blast has been increased. The radius of the blast has been increased, and the speed at which it expands has been increased as well. This should help you catch more people with the blast, whether when you're retreating or you're advancing in a fight. Hopefully you should get that Arctic Blast from the Shiva's Guard on the other heroes, do damage and do the slows. Smoke of Deceit, the duration in which you smoked has been reduced by 5 seconds. I don't think this is a big enough change to Smoke of Deceit, even though I think it's an item that relatively needs some nerfing, because really in most public games it's a risk-free item. You can just smoke and hope to catch someone off guard. If you don't, chances are you're still safe. But now you have 5 seconds less to find that person, or 5 seconds less to escape. Teleport scroll stacking delay has been reduced. Stacking delay is like if multiple people are teleporting to the same tower, it's usually the other people who teleported after the first person usually get delayed, right? So this was really bad in the sense that if you wanted to stop a push on one of your towers, like if there are 5 men pushing one tower, it really sucked to be TPing to one tower, because now you'll arrive one at a time because the other people are so slow at TPing, and then they'll pick you off one at a time. And really it was really bad because the teleport scrolls were just way too delayed. Like people would arrive 8 seconds late, way too late for the fight, and the fight could even be decided by then. One person could be already dead and it's a 5v4. But then now the max targeting range has been increased, which means that range is in picture the tower, and then the range you can teleport away from the tower. So you could use this offensively to try, like if a melee hero is right clicking your tower, for example, you can TP a little bit further behind him, such that when he's retreating he might run into you if you instantly teleport to that spot. Or you can use it to gank, because now you can TP further back away from the tower, and hopefully you TP into the fog and the other people in the lane will not see you arrive. So it could help for ganking. And yeah, that's pretty much it for TP scrolls. Tranquil Boots move speed increased from 85 to 90, and the HP regen is increased from 10 to 12, and this of course is when your boots are not broken. So yeah, I still think Tranquil Boots are good boots for supports. I think they're still good boots for gankers, and situationally good boots for some other people who don't really need boot upgrades. For like carries and stuff, it's really out the window, because you attack most of the time and you attack most of the time, so you'll never get the benefits. But yeah, really these are just some buffs, because Tranquil Boots used to be very good. Like, let's just say they were very good, they were nerfed, and then they're now just average, and then now they're just good boots. And the strength, agility, damage bonus in Veil of Discord has been increased to help people, I guess, get more value out of their Veil of Discord, because back in the day you put a Robe of the Magi, but now you put a Null Talisman, so they're just increasing the value of the Null Talisman within the Veil of Discord. That's pretty much it for the patch. It was a long update, I'm sorry I took so long. But I can't wait to play some Terrorblade. Like I said, he's not an insta-win hero. He really requires a lot of farm and a lot of team coordination, and you need help in the early game. But usually when you start farming, things go well. But yeah, thanks for listening to me if you've listened this long to the patch update, and I'll check you out some other time in more of my videos. I will do some videos on the New Bloom Festival event, and I will do videos on the random ability draft whenever I get the chance, because I do play Dota 2 as well, and I believe it's a good game. And I'll check you out in my next videos. Thanks and goodbye.